Hey guys, thank you again for joining me here in the Nursing and Cocktail Lounge. You have your host and founder, Latoya, back here with the cocktail. So this episode, I'll be talking about the why and the how of travel nursing. So grab your cocktails and join me here. So I'm back here again with Nurse Chris, and we're giving you all the tea of travel nursing. We're starting with the basics. So what is a travel nurse?
Yeah, what is a travel nurse? So a travel nurse is a registered nurse who decides to venture out from the general staff nurse and start traveling either across the nation or outside of the country to help out facilities that are in need of nurses.
Right. So currently they have travel nurse positions across the United States, including Hawaii, including Alaska, even in Dubai. You can actually be a travel nurse and travel to Dubai. Those contracts are a little longer, but it's an option.
Mm-hmm. There are U.S. territories. So outside of the 50 states, like you were saying, Alaska and things like that, there's also like the Virgin Islands and other different countries that are territorial to the United States. So those are also places that you can travel as well.
Most definitely. So I know you're at home or at work thinking, wow, how do I become a travel nurse? So assuming that you're already a nurse, you've taken your board and you are a registered nurse, I would recommend you having at least 2 years under your belt, especially if you are in the areas of acute care, critical care, because you want to make sure that you are confident within your skills before you uproot yourself from the people that you know and go into other hospitals where you know no one.
Exactly. So some agencies will take a year experience, but most take at least 2 years. And as Latoya was saying, you really want to be comfortable with your skills. Like once you venture out and you start working, you really don't have anybody else to kind of vouch for you. So you want to make sure that you know what you're doing in order to execute your job correctly. So definitely minimum like 2 years experience for sure.
Right. So now let's say you have your 2 years experience and you're like, okay, I got that check. What's next? The next thing you want to do is you want to research an agency.
Yes.
So what happens is that they have travel nurse agencies that have recruiters, right? And you go to this travel agency and you say, hey, I live in New York and I want to take a travel assignment. They will ask you, where do you want to take a travel assignment? I want to take a travel assignment on the West Coast. Okay, does it matter where on the West Coast? No, it doesn't really matter. I want to do anywhere on the West Coast. They'll give you a list of places that have positions open that you have experience in.
Okay. I definitely think that, at least for me, I would suggest to just ask your fellow nurses or ask nurses that you know that are traveling, or like Facebook groups and things like that just kind of recommend certain agencies. So
most definitely. So, okay, let's go down the list. You're a registered nurse. You have 2 years experience at least under your belt.
Yes.
And you found the travel agency. What's next? So, you find your travel agency, you'll get a recruiter. They'll say, hey, Nurse Chris, I heard you want to go to the East Coast. These are the positions that I have on the East Coast. Okay. The next thing I would say that you would do is money's important, right? You want to make sure that you're getting paid as much as possible.
Coins are always important.
Get your coins.
Get your coins.
So, I would say you would ask them to send you a pay package. What am I going to get paid? I always like to ask, hey, what am I going to take home? Because sometimes they'll be like, oh, this is what you're going to get paid. And then taxes hit you and be like,
exactly.
This is not what I found out for. So I like to ask, what am I going to take home? And they usually give you a hypothetical. The tax bracket is usually 20%. So they'll say, well, hey, with a hypothetical tax bracket of 20%, this is what you will actually take home. The 20% tax bracket is the most accurate tax bracket. So you always want to use 20%. With that being said, travel agencies and recruiters are like car salesmen.
That's facts.
Because they want all the nurses to work for them.
course.
Why? Because the more nurses means the more money they get. So you want to take that package that you get from that agency and walk on over to another agency and be like, hey, what are you offering me? Because this agency over here offering me this. What you got?
Exactly. So that's why it's so important to kind of shop around agencies. I would say at least have like 3 agencies that you're talking with, because one, like Latoya was saying, your pay is important. Your coins are important. So you want to know, if I'm getting paid this much here, how much can I get paid if I go and work with another agency? And there's also a lot of other factors that determine your pay as well. So that's like insurance and things like that. So definitely just like shop around and just build a rapport with multiple agencies so that you can figure out, okay, where am I going to get, the most coin?
Right.
So.
Because you don't want to get taken advantage of, especially because they know that you are a first-time traveler.
Exactly.
They're going to assume that you don't know the tricks of the trade, but you're getting it here. So there's no reason why you should be getting taken advantage of. You're getting it here. I'm telling you the low down tea. So no one should be getting taken advantage of. Right, exactly. So, all right, you've done all those things. You've gotten your pay package. You decided to go with the highest pay package for you, right? What the recruiter is going to ask you is, do you need housing or do you not need housing?
Right.
What that means is, do you want them to house you and put you up in an Airbnb, a hotel for the time of period that you are going to be, on your travel contract? Or do you want to take the housing stipend and you be responsible for finding your own housing?
Yes.
Now, in episode 1, I told you guys that me personally, I like to take the whole stipend for myself and find the housing. Why? Because it could turn out to be extra coins. Some people, if you've never been to the state before and you're a little skeptical, might go with the housing.
Your agency find your housing.
Correct.
Or if you happen to maybe like run out of time. A lot of times you may secure an assignment and the start date is 2 weeks away and you don't have time to find housing. So that is kind of the safer route, to just go ahead and have your agency find something for you. But if you want to maximize your coins, take that stipend, because you'll go and you'll find an Airbnb or find your housing wherever. Yes. And when it's cheaper than the amount that the agency gives you, that's how you're going to fill your pockets.
Right. So, what do we got here? You guys.
So,
experience.
Have your experience, find your agency, then get your housing together.
Right.
What else?
So you've gotten all those things together, and now you're basically ready to travel. They'll send you over a contract. You review and you read the contract. Now, here's another thing. Ding, 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 ding.
Tell us, sis.
If you need time off, if you have a contract that's going to be 3 months, and you know that Thanksgiving and Christmas is included in those 3 months, you might want to tell your recruiter, hey, I want to go home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Make sure that it's written within the contract. The contract is a binding document between you, the hospital, and the agency. Exactly. So make sure that it is in the fine print. Why? Say you get to the floor, and the manager's like, well, Chris, you need to work Thanksgiving, you need to work Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and you need to work New Year's and New Year's Day. You know what I like to say? Well, according to my contract,
there we go,
I'm off all those days.
Period.
They can't say anything to you. You want to know why? It's a binding document.
And not only just your requested time off, I would say anything that you are just firm about, anything that you're specific about, put it in your contract. Because at the end of the day, even when you're doing your interview, they may say, you may put a request in when you're talking to that manager, and they'll say, oh, okay, just remind us about it later. This has actually happened to me. They'll say, remind us about it later. And then when you start, all that goes out the window. So anything that you're firm about and that you want for sure, put that in your contract. Because as Latoya said, that's a binding document. What's there is there. So
correct. Another thing, so you've gotten all of these things set up. They'll now send over your profile to the hospital, and they'll set up. Sometimes they set up a meeting with the manager, a phone interview with the manager. Sometimes they don't. I always ask for a phone interview with the manager. Why? I want her to hear me. I want her to hear my vernacular. I want her to kind of get to know me already prior to going there. Reason being, when it comes to the end of your contract or close to the end of your contract and you want to renew your contract, that meeting in the beginning is very important. 1, Two, you want to ask her things like, hey, am I going to get floated? How often do I get floated? What's your census like? Why? Because you want to know whether or not you're going to be needed on the floor. There are some hospitals out here, I'm not going to name them because I don't want any lawsuits.
Okay.
But there's some hospitals out here that hire ICU nurses to float to other floors.
Exactly.
Period. Mm-hmm. You want to know that. Another thing that you want to know is this. Some travel agencies would say, hey, I can't put more than 5 days off in your contract. But if you get an interview with the manager and you ask the manager personally,
exactly.
Hi, I've already had this plan before coming into my contract. Is it okay if I have these days off? Sometimes the manager will be like, sure. Or they'll be like, can you cut it down a little bit? But your options are open now.
At least you're giving yourself the opportunity to be able to negotiate.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for part 2 of Nurses and Cocktails, The Basics.